Hi everybody, Greg Murray here from Adaptive Edge Coaching, and today I'm going to talk to you about assertiveness, and it's a really important topic and one that comes up a lot with clients who I'm trying to empower and help them to get their needs met. A lot of times people can fall into a habit of becoming too accommodating, avoid conflict in order to keep the peace, but the trouble with that is we don't get our needs met. So I'll briefly tell you the four main problems that people run into when they're trying to boost their assertiveness levels, and then I'll go into them each in a bit more depth. So the first one is the risk-reward miscalculation. Second one is identity fears. Third one is inner conflict about what to say. And then the fourth one is a lack of awareness about how direct to be. So the first one is risk-reward miscalculation. And so what this comes from is the idea that we don't accurately assess the risk and reward of staying silent versus speaking up. A lot of times we'll over amplify the risk of speaking up and the repercussions that may happen after the fact. Like if you're being assertive with your boss or partner or family member, you may worry about them holding that against you, or you not getting what you need and instead getting punished, or there's many risks that are legitimately concerning for people when they want to speak up, and maybe their job would be in jeopardy or something like that. But a lot of times these notions are not accurately assessed. So the first thing that we'll do is just think about that objectively. What are the costs of speaking up? Okay, objectively. But then what are the costs of staying silent? This is something that people don't accurately assess either. They'll think only about the negatives that would happen if they speak up, and not about the negatives of not getting their needs met. The costs of staying silent are also pretty great. So once you lay that out side by side, it's typically pretty helpful and can propel you into that first step of being more assertive and getting your needs met. Okay, so the second one is identity fears. So a lot of times for people who have been accommodating for a long time, they have this internalized sense of identity that maybe they don't deserve things, or they shouldn't get their needs met, or that asking for what you need is greedy, selfish, these types of things. So if I ask for what I need, if I assert my boundaries, if I assert my demands, my needs in this situation, then what does that say about me? Does it say that I'm selfish? Does it say that I'm unreasonable? Does it say that I'm manipulative? So going through these things and just thinking about why it is that you believe that about yourself and maybe not others. A lot of times people who are not as assertive as they would like, they see other people who are assertive and they say, well, and so we can ask, well, do you think that about this person? No, you really respect when this person does it too, right? So identity fears is a big one that can hold people back, and that's very real, especially if you've never done this before. You don't know what it feels like to say these things. You don't know what the responses will be. It does help to look into the past a little bit. We're talking about identity. Of course, we're talking about your memory of yourself. So identity is a big one that comes into assertiveness as well. Okay, so the third one is inner conflict about what to say. So what can happen is that if you've never practiced this, if you don't have experience being assertive, you may think, okay, I'll say this, but what if it comes across too aggressive? What if it's not what I meant to say? What if I get too defensive? So this is very simply fixed with a role play. All right. Now you can do this with a coach, and you can do this with partner, spouse, friends, anybody. But just the idea is that you're practicing what it feels like to say these things. And I always encourage people to bring it back to interests. What are your interests? What are your passions? What is important to you, and not positions, right? This is principles of negotiations. You never want to get it into a personal battle where it's like, well, this is my bottom line, or you also want to remove the personal element of it. And instead of saying you're being unfair or you're doing this to me, right? If you talk about your interests and the other person's interests, well, then now it's not a personal battle between you. So inner conflict about what to say can come up a lot, and just practicing and role playing, talking about your interests and being assertive in that way is a great way to overcome that. And then the last thing is lack of awareness about directness. And again, this is just we don't have much practice. People who are trying to become more assertive, they may not have this skill just yet. So the solution to this is to be transparent about your purposes for having the conversation. You don't want to just come in hot and tell somebody that they're wrong, or shame them, or that your goal is to try to change them. And of course, many times people are not going to just say these things, but if you're not direct about your purpose, if you're not transparent about your purposes, a lot of times this can be inferred. So it's really, really advantageous to you to be transparent and talk about these purposes. So some promising purposes for having assertiveness, for being assertive and maybe having a difficult conversation, is to express your view, to raise awareness, suggest a solution, for the purpose of learning, to increase efficiency, or just create greater transparency. You can imagine that if you go into a conversation and you say the reason that you're having the conversation, these purposes are one of these 5 reasons that I've just suggested, you can imagine how the person will be less defensive and less threatened if they're wrong. They won't just think you're coming in to tell them that they're wrong, or to tell them that they need to change, or that you're wanting payback, right? So coming in, being transparent about your purposes, increases your own awareness about how direct you're being. So this is a great solution for that. So assertiveness is a great skill, and it really can change your life, whether it's getting the much amount of money that you deserve at work, or freeing up your time to do the things that you're really passionate about in your personal relationships, setting boundaries and things like that. It shows up really a lot. It also, if you have a lot of trouble with anger, whether you explode with your anger or you suppress it too much, assertiveness training is a great solution for that, because assertiveness is just channeled anger. It's defense of yourself, right? Defense of your interests. So it's really, really helpful for a variety of people for these reasons. All right, so drop me a comment. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.